Hey everyone, welcome back to another lecture of our SwiftUI crash course series. And in today's video, we are going to talk about state object and observed object in SwiftUI. So in SwiftUI, we have seen how we can reload our content view whenever there is a change in a value. So for this, we were using states in content views. Now, let's say our content view is actually dependent on some other view. Let's say our content view is dependent on the view model for showing the data as well as for saving the data. So we want that whenever there is a change in the view model, our content view should reload. So this is something that cannot be achieved via state, because state is only responsible for handling the state that is within the content view. When we talk about dependency on another class which is outside the content view scope, then in that case we need to use state object or observed object. Let's see in the video how we can achieve this state object, and I'll show you through an example that how we can actually use state object and how is it different from state. So let's dive into the code, and on the screen we have a dummy view created with some template code. So let's just remove this text from here, and instead we will be creating a list of Marvel heroes, for example, and then we will see how we can add new names to it. And first of all, we will see how we can do it through states, and later on we'll see how we can do it through the view model. So you will get a clear idea that how state works as well as how state object works. So first let's create a data source here. So we'll create hero names, which will be of type string, array of string, and I'll just add two hero names for now, like Thor and Iron Man, because those are my favorite ones. And inside the body we want to show a list. This list will contain, so let's first add a v stack, and then inside this we will add a list. For list we will pass the data. Inside the data we will pass hero name, and here we will get the hero name, and then we will show it in plain text. We will also need to provide an ID here. And now that our preview is reloaded, you can see we have a nice list with the two names that we added in the array. One is Thor and another one is Iron Man. Now let's just wrap it into a navigation stack instead of a v stack. We will wrap it in a navigation stack, as we will be performing navigation into it. And I want to give a navigation title here, Marvel Heroes. And then I want to add a plus button on the top right in the navigation bar, so that user can click on it to add a new name. So let's just quickly add it. Alright, so we have added a plus button here, and we want then that when we click on this plus button, we will be appending a new name in our hero names array. So let's quickly do it. So on click of this button, I want to add a new name. Let's say Captain America. Alright, now once I click on this plus button, a new name will be added in the hero names, and because the list shows the list of hero names and it is a state variable, so once I click on this plus button, hero names value will update and the list should also get updated. So if I click here, you'll see that a new name has been added in the list. If I click again, it will add it again. Alright, so everything is clear till here, right? Till now we haven't done anything regarding state object or observed object. This is pretty simple code that we have already learned in our previous lectures. Now it is always a best practice to have the UI code separate as well as the logic handling code separate. Currently we have written both in the same view file only, but it should actually be at two different places. This view should only be responsible for showing data to the user and taking user interactions. It should not be responsible for handling the data. For handling the data, we should have a separate view model class so that we can use that view model to retrieve the data as well as to manage the data, like create or delete or update. So everything regarding the CRUD operations should be handled in a separate view model class. So let's just quickly create a view model and remove our data handling logic from our content view to the view model. So I'm creating the view model here only. Instead of creating a new file, I'm just creating it here. You should always create a new file and then do it. And I'm naming it view model only. So alright, so in our view model class, we have created a hero names variable, which is actually a array of all the hero names. Currently, we have set the value to empty, and we have created a function to get all the hero names, get all dummy hero names, default hero names. So by default, we are keeping two values. So I have written get all default hero names, and I have called it inside the initializer. Whenever a new instance of this view model will be created, this get all default hero names function will get called. So let's create an object of this view model here. And now instead of saying hero names, we can say view model.hero names. Similarly here, we can say view model.add new name, and here we can say Captain America. Alright, so we have refactored our code. We have added a view model and removed all the business logic from the view to a different view model class. So currently our view is only responsible for showing the data, and whenever there is a new user interaction or user did some action, then we are just taking the action and sending it to the view model. So that's the whole point of MVVM pattern, is that UI should only be responsible for handling the user interactions, and view model should be responsible for handling all the business logic. So we have achieved it via using this view model. Now let's try to click on this plus button, and also let's print here all the usernames. Once we click on this button, we want to print all the hero names. So now once I click on this plus button, you'll see Captain America got added and our print statement got executed, but the list didn't reload. Let me click on this plus button again. Yeah, so the value is updating, the hero names is getting updated, but the list is not updating. And what could be the reason? So one reason could be that this view model is actually not a state variable. So let's just try to create a state. So we'll say @state. Okay, now that it has reloaded, once we click again on this plus button, you'll see then nothing happened. We still have hero name Captain America added in the hero names, but our list didn't reload. So state here won't work. We will have to make it a state object. So whenever we want to interact with some classes, we should always use state object or observed object. So because view model is actually a class, so we need to declare it as a state object, so that all the objects that are inside the view model, whenever they make any changes or whenever they publish something, our state object will update and our view model will get updated and the view will reload. So we are getting an error here which says generic struct state object requires that view model conforms to observable object. So once we declare it as a state object, this view model class should conform to observable object protocol. And this is pretty easy. You don't need to do anything. You just need to conform it to the observable object protocol. Now the error is gone. So now that we have made it as a state object, you must be thinking that now it should work because we have created it as a state and the hero names is changing. So our list should get updated. Let's try it. Let's click on this plus button to see if it is working or not. So if I click on this plus button, it still isn't working. And the reason is that we have declared it as a state object, which is correct. We also conform it to observable object protocol, which is also right. But here the hero names, we should make it as a published variable. By using this published variable, we are saying that wherever hero names is used, the view should reload and the new value should be used now. This is similar to state, but here we are actually publishing value from the view model class and listening to it inside our content view. So now once we click on the plus button, you'll see that this is working fine now. So we had to do it in 3 steps. First of all, we created a state object. We declared the view model as a state object. Secondly, we made our view model conform to observable object protocol. And thirdly, we made the hero names variable published. So these are 3 steps which you need to do whenever you have a dependency on a variable which is inside a view model class, and you want that whenever this value changes, you want your content view to be notified and reloaded whenever the value in the view model changes. So this is how it can be achieved. Now one thing I wanted to discuss is we are using state object here, and if I use observed object here instead of state object, you'll see that we will still get the same behavior as we were getting by using state object. Observed object is basically same as state object, but whenever, let's say your view is dependent on some variables or some API calls, and whenever there is a possibility that your view will recreate or re-render, then if you are using observed object, then this variable will get initialized again, and whatever data that was persisting here will get cleared and new instance of the view model will get created. So observed object will create a new instance of view model whenever this view is recreated. While if you use state object, then even if this structure view is recreated, our state object will persist the data which it was holding earlier, because this will not reload, only the structure, the view will reload. So state object always persists the data. It will not create a new instance of the view model class. But if you are using observed object and due to some reason the content view gets recreated or re-rendered, then your observed object will create a new instance again. So state object should always be used in your parent class. If there is a child class, then you can use observed object to pass the state object to our second class. I know it is confusing, so let's create another structure and understand how we can pass the data to it. So let me create another screen. So we have created another screen view, and it will take a variable which is view model from the parent view. So let's just navigate here by using navigation title. Let's navigate here and add a navigation destination. Let's add one more toolbar button to navigate to another screen, and we'll say and let's call it favorite screen. So instead of another screen, I'll say favorite screen. Alright, so now we have completed this navigation code, and now once I click on this heart button, you'll see that the second screen has appeared, and we have successfully passed our view model as an observed object to our another screen. always on your parent screen we should use state object, and on your child screen you can use observed object, because you know that child views will get dismissed in some time, or they are for performing some short action only, whereas your parent view is responsible for handling many more complex data. So you should always use state object in your parent class and observed object in your child class. This was a pretty long video. I hope you understood everything. If you have any doubts, please let me know in the comments, and we will soon be wrapping up this course. So thanks a lot for watching it till here. If you haven't liked or subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe and also share with your colleagues and friends.